When I was 22 years old, I received a handwritten note from Kay Raycroft, president of this BPW. I had just graduated from Union College with a degree in mechanical engineering and economics, a program called industrial economics. At the time, I was a female marketing representative in selling personal computers in a retail store. Within a short period of time, I got an invitation from our own Judy Clemens to participate in the individual development program, where I would learn to do public speaking. I had no idea whether my job would require that sometime in the future, so I thought I'd take a chance. The topic I chose was smoking in the workplace because I worked in an office with 4 colleagues who smoked in a very tiny space. And when I arrived home at night, my clothes and hair reeked of cigarettes. I ended up representing the chapter at the National Convention, giving my speech in front of, as we had shared, 400 women in a room so filled with smoke, I could barely see past the first row. I did not win that contest, but I am here today.
You would win it now.
At BPW, I also met Joanne Valentine, who encouraged me to consider a career in financial management. After interviewing with all of the local brokerage firms, only one firm was willing to take a chance on me. I was hired as the only woman financial advisor in our Albany office out of 25. I trained at the World Trade Center with 51 colleagues, 11 who were women, and within 1 year, I was the only woman left. My struggle. It was an entrepreneurial, commission-based job. Every month I wondered, am I going to be able to survive in this industry? Will I be able to make enough money to support myself, let alone support a family, which was my top priority? My 5 trainers voted me most likely to succeed, and they had more faith in me than I had in myself. I worked extremely hard, worked several nights a week. I had a very detailed business plan, and I kept asking myself, am I going to be able to survive as a financial advisor? Why is this so hard? I wanted it all. I wanted a high-level career, I wanted a family, and I wanted to make an impact on my community. And sometimes it felt impossible. I had a wonderful support system. I had tremendous parents. My father, as you heard, is a professor at Union College, and my mother was an artist who worked inside the home, raising a family of 4 children, and worked part-time. But none of them could show me how to be an executive-level woman, building an entrepreneurial career and raising a family at the same time. I had no female mentors, and I had no female role models at the time. I was figuring it out alone. So I chose to do something different. I started an impact circle with a group of women like me who wanted to collaborate and build their businesses. Back then, we had few very focused business networking groups. I created a group of executive women from all different disciplines across the capital region, and we met monthly for breakfast for over 25 years. The breakthrough of that group was when something unexpected happened. One of the women chose to share a flash of vulnerability. She shared openly with tears and vulnerability and authenticity that she was struggling with a personal issue. And it was at that moment where all of these executive business women around a boardroom got the opportunity to lean in, to support, to embrace this woman in a very personal way. And I share that it is when our first impact circle became transformational. That's when everything changed. That's when the magic happened. Deeper friendships were formed, business was flowing, true life integration happened with our executive careers. We referred more clients to each other, we shared more business strategies, Many of us found career success for the first time. I was not just surviving, I was thriving. I became a vice president and a mom in the same year. That's when our group went from suits to souls. The truth is, we all have circles. Family, friends, co-workers, spiritual groups. But they don't always focus on the specific goals that we might have at any given point in our lives. That's what makes an impact circle so different. It's a group of women with similar circumstances or men at any age, at any stage of life, with shared goals, using our collective synergy, authenticity, vulnerability, committed not just to networking, but to real transformation. After a while, I noticed that some of the women in this first group were focused on business development. What I wanted more than anything in the world was to have a family, and I wanted to do both. I wanted to be a high-level executive woman, and I wanted to have a family at the same time. I was struggling with the decision, could I continue to have it all and consider having a second child while navigating this very entrepreneurial venture that I was on? At the time, there was a retiring financial advisor who had selected me out of all of the financial advisors in the office after a 35-year career, and he wanted me to take over his business. I finally got my break. It was so rewarding to think, yes, I'll be able to do this. Attempting to keep work-life balance is when I decided to consider hiring a junior partner. I had met through one of my impact circles a woman by the name of Carol Neckars, and I said, Carol, meet me in the first room off the Fort Orange Club parking lot. And she said, fine. I get there 30 minutes early. I have my list of questions. She's my first interviewer, and I am going to get there early and be prepared. And Carol was thinking the same thing. And so, bottom line, when the grandfather clock started chiming 12 noon, and neither of us knew that we were right around the corner from each other. She was in the first room, I was actually in the second room. And we peered around the corner, and here we were, both of Italian descent, both fairly petite, wearing a blue suit with a cream color V-neck blouse, with the same blue pump shoes, and our reflection, we just started chuckling. We went up to our interview lunch, and we discovered that not only did we share the same china pattern, our first cousins were named John, our firstborns were named John, and we drove out of the parking lot in the same black BMW 3 Series. And Carol has been my best friend and business partner for 28 years. She took a little hiatus, had the audacity to try to retire on me, but came back part-time, and we're gonna have our new group photo this coming Friday when she comes back to town. That was possible through my impact circles for somebody who introduced us. Shockingly, that financial advisor reneged on transferring his client base to us, and I had already hired Carol, so that just meant we had to roll up our sleeves and work hard over the next enduring part of our career. I already had a 4-year-old son. How could I possibly manage having a second child? I could list 32 reasons why not to have another child, intellectually, but in my heart, I knew someone was missing. I felt so strongly that my son should have a sibling. I grew up with amazing siblings. With the insights from my impact circles and the guidance from a psychologist, my husband and I decided to make the decision to have a second child. When I learned I was having a girl, I cried big, sloppy tears of joy to be able to have 2 children. With the insights from my impact circle and this guidance, it was literally the best decision of my entire life. Fast forward, when my son was in high school and he graduated from high school, I said, We can have a graduation party, or we can take a trip overseas. He said, definitely a trip. So he chose to go to Greece. He asked me if it would be okay if his girlfriend came along with us. Now, we're a family of 4. We've tended to travel as a family of 4. I wasn't sure how that was going to go with the dynamics, but I said, okay, let's give it a try. We had a beautiful week in Athens and Santorini, and on the last day, my son comes to me and says, Mom, I want to buy one more thing. And I said, John, we're at financial budget. We had a great week. He goes, it will be okay. So he led me into this little Greek shop on the island of Santorini. We opened the door, and he introduced me to the older gentleman that was at the counter. And he said, could you please show my mom the piece that we were looking at together? This older gentleman brings out a little box, and I'm thinking, oh, geez. He opens it up, and it's a pendant. It's a necklace. It's about the size of a nickel. It was pewter and had little black etchings down the center. And he said, can you share with my mother how this piece works? And the older gentleman said, you take this necklace, you gently bend it down the center, and you give 1/2 to somebody very special. And I thought, oh, how sweet, he's gonna give it to his girlfriend. My son, he's senior in high school, turns to his little sister and says, I want you to know you are the most important girl in my world. I am going off to college, and I would like you to have this half of the necklace. At that moment, I knew that decision, they have had an incredible relationship ever since. That is my proudest moment. My daughter grew up not only to be a wonderful sister, but today she's also my financial consulting business partner, 3 years as a financial advisor with us on our team. A dream come true. My 2 amazing children are my deepest pride and joy, and my impact circles help me come to that decision. If any of you here tonight have ever wrestled with the question, can I do it all? Can I do both? Can I have a high-level career? Then you probably know why I benefited so much from that second circle. At age 50, I noticed I had a health symptom. Sadly, my doctors didn't take it seriously. I had to strongly advocate for myself. They said, that's normal for your age, but I persisted. It turned out that I had a grapefruit-sized ovarian cyst. My doctor's office dismissed me. My physician bristled when I wanted a second opinion of the top medical professional in the capital region, and they said you would not be able to get into that position. I decided to lean on my impact circles once again. I called one of the gals in my first professional women's network. She happened to be an attorney who defended doctors in the capital region, and she knew the good ones. And so I asked her if she knew this person, and she said, oh, yes, I'll text him right now. She had a very strong Rolodex. That's what we used to refer to it back in the day. Bottom line, she texted that doctor and said, I have a friend who might need surgery and wondered, would you be able to see her for an appointment? He said immediately at 10 o'clock at night as she's texting him, yes. And then she said these words, if it is cancer, will you still be able to see her? And no one at that moment in time ever used the word cancer. The circles helped me connect with the right specialist and got me into the best doctors. Ultimately, I went to Sloan Kettering and was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I had always been so healthy. I had just done a ballroom dance camp with my son, who was nice enough to do it with me, and it's always been my daughter who's been dancing from age 10 all the way up through the college years, because I have been ballroom dancing for many years, following in the legacy of both of my parents, who met on the ballroom dance floor in Brooklyn and danced together for over 50 years. A beautiful love story. I've always considered my dance circles to be an informal circle in my life, but they turned out to be critical in my healing journey. One of the things that I learned was when I had to go through chemotherapy, I went to my local Fred Astaire dance studio and said, I'll see you in a year. I'm gonna have to take a break from my beloved dancers. And one of the fellow members overheard me, and she said to me, if you ever need a second opinion for anything oncology related, feel free to talk to my husband. And I said, Fred, the one I've been dancing with for the past 10 years is an oncology specialist? And that's what it turned out to be. He got me into the top specialists in the entire country at Mass General, at Johns Hopkins. So I had 3 and 4. I had an entire tumor board, had to read the data for my very, very complex case. And it got me to the top specialist with the top treatment plan, doing exactly what was needed for me and nothing more. And it helped save my life. While I was going through chemotherapy, I used my circles. They came with me as my chemo buddies. They came with me to pick out my wigs. They helped me shop for anything that I needed, and they accompanied me to every single treatment. On my very first day of chemotherapy, I walked into the doctor's office, and the nurse looked a little annoyed to see me, which was so unusual. And she said, you don't belong here. And I was fairly certain I did. And bottom line, I found my place in the room and settled in. I am known as the chocolate bar lady. Any place I go, I bring my chocolates because I will give them to the lab tech, the blood technician, the doctor, the receptionist. I would bring those chocolate bars and give them out to the world because why not? Spread a little sunshine and sweetness everywhere I go. And I tried that with this nurse, and she was not having it. She just was not happy with my fluttering around with my little positive attitude. And she said, I just give these to my husband and he doesn't need it, and I don't like chocolate anyway. So I always tried to think about what somebody else is going through. Perhaps she's navigating something far worse than I could ever imagine. But the next treatment day, I noticed that she was munching on something, and I decided I was going to find out what that was. So I looked over this big, tall counter, and I noticed she was munching on licorice. Now, I'm a chocolate connoisseur. I love every type of dark chocolate, but red licorice and pull and peel and cherry and sour, I love my red licorice. So the next time I went to CVS and I got an entire bag of every kind of red licorice, and I gently placed the chocolate for one nurse who loved me and the other for the other nurse who looked up and said to me, you are my new best friend. So I won her over, but it was my Impact Circle connections that got me into the best specialists and changed the trajectory of my life. If you've ever had someone sit with you through a tough chapter of your life, through loss, crisis, you know how powerful that can be. Those women changed the course of my cancer journey. They made a huge difference in the quality of my life. And that's when I started my third Impact Circle. So no other woman ever has to hear those words, you have cancer, and face it alone. I have been meeting for the past 13 years, once a month for dinner, to welcome any woman of any type of cancer so we can share our stories, we can share our resources, we can be there to hold people in our hearts. We have heart-wrenchingly lost 4 members over the past 13 years. One, our very beloved Jane Gola. However, we are thriving despite some women who've gone through 4 different bouts of cancer. Lastly, I started my 4th Impact Circle for women in big life transitions, whether loss of a spouse due to death or divorce, as in my case, loss of big jobs, changes in identity through retirement, aging, or loss of parents, or big losses of impacts that are profound in our lives at this juncture. So, if you want to build your own circle, how do you start? Here are a few guidelines. Identify a few people that you know of in your life that might have similar challenges or similar goals. It can be anything that you meet about. Agree on a mission and commit to showing up for each other. Meet on a regular basis and watch the magic unfold. I want to help you get started, so here's what you can think of right now. Picture 2 or 3 people in your life. They might be neighbors, they might be colleagues, they might be friends. Anybody, feel free to jot them down, write them in your phone, and consider reaching out to them. It is that simple. It can start very, very small, but it can make a huge impact in your life that can be transformative. And that could be the start of your own impact circle. So in closing, I didn't start these groups to make friends. I started these groups to solve problems. But today, some of the deepest friendships and business partners that I have come across are through these circles. I am living and I am thriving in a world of loneliness is called an epidemic. Impact circles are my cure. They gave me strength, wisdom, laughter, and love, and the courage to keep going. Having it all is hard, but the lessons that I've learned, and the one I want to leave you with tonight is, you don't have to do it alone. Thank you. Very important to me. Thank you so much. I've been told that I can take a few questions if anybody has them. I'm more than happy to spend just a few minutes before we get on to all your other important business. Anybody have any immediate questions that they might like to ask? If not, I'll share one thing that I get asked a lot. How do I identify the right people? That's a question I get all the time. And it's so simple. They're people that you already know. They're people in your circles. They're people, whether in your family or your neighbors or your colleagues. It can be anyone. Maybe it's somebody that you don't know. It's okay. The next question I get is, how do I actually reach out to people? Isn't that awkward? What do I say to them? It doesn't have to be anything special. You can say, I heard this woman talk at the BPW. I have her book. I read her book. In the back of my book, I have a how-to guide, so it's all in there. I also have an author website, which has a go-to guide with all the speaking engagements that I've got coming up. You can share that. I'm absolutely thrilled to chat with anybody about how I can help. And lastly, I tend to get I'm not a starter. I don't want to start one, but I'd be happy to join one. I get that one most often. And so I just say, maybe somebody that you know is the starter. You don't have to be the starter, but maybe somebody that you know is a little bit more extroverted. In my first impact circle, we had a mix of both introverted and extroverted people. So find a buddy that's one of those extroverted, and perhaps you start that circle together. So any other questions? Anybody brave enough? Yes, go ahead.
You talked about your first, your second, your third, your fourth circle.
Yeah.
Are these also going on? Are you still
The-
going to all 4?
The first one I did for 25 years. We took a break. We just celebrated our 35th reunion just last year. So I'm still very connected to those folks. They're spread all over the country now, so we don't meet on a regular basis, but we are connected. I did a book signing at the Book House on Saturday and had some folks come from that. The second one I did for 15 years. That was the one that was known as the Executive Network. I affectionately call it the Mommy Club. And those women are we met with for 15 years. Now our children are young adults, so it's not as relevant. The third one is the Cancer Impact. I call it Passion, Purpose, and Legacy. I changed it to include legacy after we lost our treasured members. That one is still going strong. And the 4th chapter one, because I experienced this big transition, a very surprising transition, and I created that, and that one's been going strong. And so I have the 2 that are going, and the other ones, again, I'm still very much connected with, but we don't meet with on a regular basis. But I keep up with coming up with many different ones, but you want to have what's most important, and you can't spread yourself too thin. We all have existing circles. I do have my dance circles, I have my business circles, I have lots, but these are the formal ones, and we do meet on a regular basis. We'll take a break during the summer times, but most of the time we meet once a month for dinner. Any other questions? Any other ideas, thoughts? Well, I know there's a lot of business to be done today. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening and being such a part of this wonderful evening. And I certainly know my parents got married on my father's birthday, so this is also their anniversary. So I know they're here with us, and thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bailey just loves you to death. I want you to know that. So she, even though she had some minor surgery, she's recovering. Poor Mary and Susan drove around today to go and pick this up for you from the mayor's office. It's a proclamation. It has a lot of where to's and here for's and all that stuff. I'm not going to bore you with that. But the bottom line is, it says, I, Gary McCarthy, Mayor of the City of Schenectady, do hereby proclaim September 24th, 2025 as Alissa Quinn Day in the City of Schenectady. On behalf of our community, we celebrate her achievements, her dedication, and her many contributions that have enriched the lives of so many.
Now I'm speechless. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. And to Susan Daly, who I met in 1984 when we started in this chapter. So thank you again, everyone. I really,
Thank you for coming.
Really
that was
appreciate it.
absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you.